Okay, so I ask a lot of my motorcycle, partly because it's the only motorcycle I have. But because I ask so much, I've tried to create it into something that will do everything I need to do. So for this bike, I need to be able to follow my kids around. They want to go to the motocross track. I want to go up in the woods and hit the trails. And sometimes I just want to cruise. But that's where the cruising part of the Yoshimura I did has me the least happy. So when we did the Vortex and Yoshimura, it's been overall a complete success. Love the power, love the way it feels. And when you're romping around, it's not too bad. We did salvage the heat guard off the stock one because the kids are young enough, they like to sit on the front with me and go for quick little rides. Don't want to burn in their little legs. But when you're cruising down the road, that's when that's a problem, at least for me. It's just a constant droning sound. Now, if you'll look right here, we don't have the tip in. So this exhaust by default comes with two different inserts, a spark arrestor and a lower volume one. And trust me, you don't want to ride around with that. But even with the spark arrestor, as much as I thought it would lower the tone, it really hasn't. This is the stock spark arrestor insert from the 450l and it's a big old exhaust. And after staring at this for a bit and experimenting with it, we're going to try some today. Now, the way I see this, I have two different attempts. Attempt number one is going to be to take this insert and chop off the back part of the arrestor and weld it to this. And that'll do two things. One, this baffle's blocked at the back, so that's really going to help with the noise, but you're still going to have the screen spark arrestor if I were to get checked. But this one on here also has two little cutouts on here, so even with that arrestor inserted, that still should let some more noise go through. If that fails and if that's still too loud, well then from there what we can do is we can cut the screen on here and we can weld this here and we can create a spark arrestor that's sealed up front but is blocked off in the back. Now here in a second we're going to do a sound check with this to show why I don't quite want to do that. At this point I've pretty much given up on trying to capture good audio of these bikes with the exhaust. It pumps so much air, it creates wind, so I'm just going to show you guys real quick here the best way I can do this. So let's go ahead and get set up real quick, kind of do a quick sound comparison of what the bike looks like with the spark arrestor and when you kind of rig up a towel and the Honda 450l spark arrestor, and you can kind of see where my experimentation has led me to believe I think we can do something about this today. So be sure to subscribe to the channel and let's see if we can make something work. Okay, and these fittings on here, these Yoshimura ones, they are a pain to get in and out. So we've got the spark arrestor one sitting in here, not completely flush, but it'll sit good enough for what we need to do. Okay, for consistency purposes, I cut a line in the ground, and you can actually hear makes a little popping sound, so we're going to hold the phone above the air coming out. We've got a little bit of glare going on, but hopefully you can see what we got here at idle. Okay, that'll be for later. Now we can't really film what we're going to do here in a second, revving it, but let's show what happens when we rig in the stock one. Okay, so now what we did is we took the stock insert, wedged it in here, and got a towel around it to seal it. So now let's get the phone and see how that sounded. As you can see, we are much quieter. Okay, go ahead and rev it. Okay, so what the thought is on here is we're going to cut this right here to use as our insert, and then we're just going to barely lay it in the back and tack weld it as a start. And so using the length of the Yoshimura spark arrestor, we've approximately determined that once we cut here, we're just going to take a little bit off of this tip, as you can see here. So we're going to cut this tip off and just do a soft tack weld on here first and see how that sounds. If it's too loud, we'll go ahead and break off that and then permanently weld it to this one. So it happens when your dad is a commercial plumber access to a bunch of tools, commercial tubing cutter, or just a normal tube cutter. Nice clean cut. This, on the other hand, we're gonna have to grind out. It's going in.
Yeah, it is.
Surprisingly, even with the dull. There she is. Do-it-yourself 450l spark arrestor insert. So now, hold this up. Make sure we get the angle right. The tubing cutter squeezes this in, so we gotta ream it out a little bit, but you can just see here real quick once we do that how perfect this should fit. So let's get this cleaned up and see how it works. Okay. So right now we've just done a single tack weld as a test. Get her right in. Hold on. I don't think this one hasn't been in as much, so it's still kind of like that factory tight. You know, I'm hitting. Okay, go ahead and fire it. Definitely changed the tone.
Sounds like it should. Sounds like
So let's compare our line. We're at 88, go and rev it. Okay, so we're way lower than we were before. I think this is a good path. Now, it did smell a little richer with the restriction, which I was expecting. So let's go and get this cover off on the Vortex and take the low and medium jets and turn them from 5 to 4 to lean it out a little bit, just like you would with a carburetor on a more restrictive exhaust. Okay, so quick update. Put it in there and at idle it was a lot quieter. But I went around my dad's property and he's got 3 to 4 neighbors around him when I ride with the kids and just ripping it hard. It was still a little louder than we wanted. So what we're gonna do though, because we already took it out, that's why we just did a single tack weld. But either way, we're making progress. I like this with the Honda insert more than what Yoshi sent. So worst case scenario, we're gonna go with this. But what we're gonna do real quick, since we know we've got a solution, since this has these side vents right here, we're gonna go ahead and cut the screen off and then tack weld it to the spark arrestor insert. Okay, so here's kind of a final follow-up to everything we came up with. Sorry, we're not the best at always filming as we go. So again, started with the 450l stock spark arrestor. This was part of a cap. We did a test weld just to make sure the metals were gonna mate because we're just using what we had. But anyway, we took the 450l spark arrestor, cut the tip off, and this is the insert that came with it. Now we ended up taking this off originally, and we took a screwdriver and hammered it through. It's kind of hard to see, but we closed off those vents just a little bit. So anyway, and then we just got a bunch of tack welds all the way around. And again, now we have a closed end. So this is the piece that's gonna go on the bike. Now we did experiment just a little bit with the stock spark arrestor. Well, it's the Yoshi stock spark arrestor, ripped the screen off, but this actual part right here is way wider than this was. And so trying to pinch it down and get it to weld wasn't working. So if I ever wanted that again, that's 30, 35 bucks gone. But when you consider the exhaust system itself retails for over $600, the inserts are pretty cheap. So what we got right here is the insert I think that everybody wishes Yoshi would make. Now again, with the Vortex, part of the beauty of that is right now I've got the low, which would be your pilot, and the mid, which would be your needle. I've got those turned from 5 to 4 as a starting point because when we were holding that in, it smelled a little rich. So I mean, if it smells rich, it's probably really rich. I left the main alone. I'm okay with the main being a little rich when I'm trying to rip on it. We'll kind of experiment with that over time. Okay, so at this point, we are gonna go put my new insert in the bike, and then I'm gonna go do some riding, and we'll come back with a final thought. Okay, so we're riding it right now with the modified exhaust. I've been running it on the 445 and it seems to be running pretty good. I haven't experimented too much because it takes, you know, it's not like it's hard to take the cover off, but it's work. But I think we're sounding pretty good here. We've got all the control I want. I absolutely love it. Show you here in a second. I will say I think I've got an exhaust leak. I'm not getting any backfiring, but I've just got a loud ticking noise, and so the bike's running fine, so I think it has to be the exhaust. Woo! So I don't know what you guys think, but on stock tires, got this leaning pretty good. Would have never done that with the stock ignition, and the reason I say that is you need to be on and off very smooth through here. What's cool about this mod is we're still probably honestly twice as loud as stock, which stock wasn't much, but we're 50% quieter than the Yoshi with its spark arrestor. But I've still got a 450 tone, and with the Vortex and the mod, I've got all the power I want. In fact, I've got more power than I can use off-road most of the time. Okay, so now that we've had the bike stock, we've had the bike with the Yoshi, the way it comes, and now that we've got our modified version, I'm very happy with the modified version. There's a little bit of power loss compared to the way the Yoshi is out of the box. I mean, you're definitely a little more free-flowing, but that thing's still a beast. With the 450 and what we've done, there's plenty of power, and you still have all the herky-jerkiness taken care of that we had originally. So technically, we're out zero extra money, and now we've got a bike with a spark arrestor for the woods, and we're quieter for the areas we ride. I personally need to get some hearing protection for the road because all the wind noise and everything I hear can cause hearing damage over time. So I need to do something with that. But my helmet has no padding around the ears. And when you're cruising at 50, 60 with it right now, it doesn't sound hardly any different than stock. I said that with the Yoshi when I first did it, but when you cruise for a long time, it did start to wear on me a little bit. I was getting tired of it. So this took care of it. Maybe we're building up a little more heat in the pipe than we were before, so maybe the packing won't last long. I don't know. I'm not too worried about it. That's not a big deal. Anyways, hopefully this mod is useful for you guys who have a Yoshi and you want to take the same approach, because at the end of the day, it doesn't cost anything. Now, if you haven't bought a pipe for your 450L yet and you are concerned about noise, you're going to need to do the FMF Q4. You can take the tip out for racing, but from what I've heard though, is that tip will melt your turn signals. So now for the Yoshi, I've got plenty of power, and if for some reason I wanted to race, I could order another high flow insert tip for like 30 bucks. But at the same time, I will caution that when I'm out on gravel roads, this thing has so much power, it's just dancing with those tires. So tires are a bigger concern for me at this point, far before any additional power is going to be. So, and at the same time, you could probably turn the Vortex up a little bit. So, all right, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you decide to modify yours, why don't you go and throw it in the comments and let everybody else know what you think as well. All right, thanks for watching and keep riding.